And I say that they're both all-time talents. Wilt and KD, very mobile, kind of wanderers, all time for a decade, arguably the best pure unstoppable scorer in the sport for over a decade. You're going to look up, though, at some point and go, that's it? Wilt was only the 7th leading scorer? And I do think with KD, his legacy is, that's it? Because I don't think they're going to win this year. I don't think they get through Milwaukee. Your thoughts on how do you view KD and how will we view him later?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting comparison. I certainly do believe that it's apt in some ways. Some of Wilt's wandering was by necessity by the Warriors who simply couldn't afford him. So it wasn't all his volition that he was moving around. But that said, we always think of Wilt, and I didn't know Wilt. I don't know about him the way I do KD. So it's hard for me to go too deep into this, but Wilt was always viewed and continues to be viewed as an amazing talent who never had the team or championship success that you would expect from a player of his caliber. And I think that's where the comparison is very apt. I think the other part for me that's very interesting, where KD has morphed into Wilt, because the one thing that KD always told us from the very beginning was, all I want to do is hoop. I just want to be a hooper. And Wilt, as we know, got involved. He wanted to hoop, but he was into a multitude of things. Acting. As much as players were involved in or off-the-court activities in a big way, Wilt really led the charge when it came to that, particularly once he got to L.A. KD is doing that now. And so I think the hardest part, or maybe where the comparison is most apt, is it's really hard to define who they are in the basketball universe, because you can look at the talent and say they should be this, and yet you always feel as if you're a little wanting. I mean, it's crazy to think that KD hasn't fulfilled his abilities. In the same way, it's crazy to think that Wilt Chamberlain didn't fulfill his abilities when you look at the pure numbers.
Right.
And yet, when you look at the overall success of their careers, that's the feeling that you have walking away from them. So, for the longest time, we compared LeBron to Wilt as a great physical talent. This was in particularly when we just couldn't get over the hump and win championships. But I feel as if maybe you're onto something, and that KD has replaced LeBron when it comes to that comparison.
Well, I think LeBron's a much greater leader than Wilt was. Wilt was sort of his own guy. I think he didn't necessarily make everybody better. So here's a fascinating thing. I think one of the more interesting stories, Phoenix has surprised us and the Knicks have surprised us. Now, I don't think they're built to win a championship. The leap is too far from bad to title. But
agreed.
A fascinating thing is happening with the Knicks, and this is one of the hardest things to do in sports for a general manager. Julius Randle's not a max player, but he is right now. He embodies everything the Knicks. He plays hard. He plays every night. He plays defense. He hustles, and he's not a max player, but he's playing like one this year. So what do the Knicks do with Julius Randle? Because I feel like if you don't give him all this money, the soul of the operation walks out the door. What do you do with him?
Yeah. Tread very carefully, because this is an issue that a lot of teams run into, but it seems that the Knicks run into it more often than anybody else, which is somebody does something in New York and you get excited and then you go overboard and you make too much of it. Julius Randle has had a great breakout season. I can't help, and this might be the cynical part of me, can't help but feel that at least some of what is driving this transformation of Julius at both ends of the court is the fact that he only has $4 million guaranteed for next season.
Right.
It's $19 million total. He wants to get paid. And so he's on his best behavior. And you have a guy like Tom Thibodeau coming in who I think can appeal and take advantage of what Julius is. But let's be clear. And this is where Knicks fans have lost their minds about Julius Randle as an MVP candidate. The depth and versatility of the Knicks is what is at their heart. It is why they have had all this success. Julius, you can make the case, is their best player, but they don't run everything through him.
That's right.
Their bench, and they were a sub 500 team at one point this season, and they've had a good stretch. But a lot of that has come because their bench is outplaying every other bench.
Yeah.
So this is where they need to be. Honestly, they have this next year, fully guarantee his contract. I wouldn't have a problem if they didn't extend him and just said, you know what, let's get one more year of prime Julius Randle playing for his next contract, whether it's with us or somebody else, because they're not at the leaping off point where they are, as you mentioned, a title contender. So if they do pay Julius some crazy extension, now it screws up the entire hierarchy of their team, because you have a number of young players that are just, I would argue, just as valuable as Julius.
Oh, yeah.
Or darn near. And now how are you going to pay them commensurate to what you've got with Julius? And so you have Obi Toppin in the waiting. It's a little bit like quarterbacks in the NFL. You want to get the best out of them while you've got them at a reasonable sum, because once you pay them max, now they have to deliver max. And I'm just not sure that Julius Randle has all of the tools necessary to be able to do that.
You know, it's interesting. Sometimes pressure's a real thing. And for the last couple of years, I feel like we've kind of demanded Milwaukee get to the finals. And when they don't, we're like, yeah, this Giannis thing it's a lot of hype. And I said yesterday, I think Milwaukee's going to win it this year. Once LeBron got hurt and said, I won't be 100%, I thought, okay, it's Milwaukee's year. First of all, we've dismissed them. No pressure. Second of all, they match up now really good with Brooklyn. Third, they brought a couple of pieces that don't get pub. They won't be on the cover of Slam magazine, but PJ Tucker and Drew Holiday, veterans, play defense, been in, they're physical veteran players. Oh, can't have enough of those in the playoffs. And I think to myself, this is actually the year they're going to win. The year we dismiss them, the next year, there's no pressure. Nobody's talking about Milwaukee, and I don't think it's a hot take. I think it just makes a lot of sense. By the way, this could happen to the Clippers. The year we said we gave up on them, the next year they come in. But your thoughts about Giannis, who's actually having a great year?
Yeah, for first of all, it's wide open when it comes to, at this point, with the Lakers a mess, with Brooklyn a mess. I don't know that there's a favorite. I think there are 5 or 6 teams that ultimately could win it, and that does benefit teams like the Bucks and like the Clippers, in that it's wide open and there's no clear favorite. You mentioned how the Bucks are more primed. Honestly, I agree. Drew Holiday and PJ Tucker are great additions, just steady, heady veterans that you've added to the equation. You know what you're going to get in and night out. But here's the big difference. Giannis Antetokounmpo, in the same way that the Bucks are being overlooked, is being completely overlooked for MVP this year, because I suspect the voters, one, are disappointed that he didn't deliver in the postseason after being voted MVP the last 2 years, and because they don't want to put him in that rare air of Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain and Larry Bird, the only 3 players who have ever won 3 consecutive MVPs. That's not my problem, because I didn't vote him number 1 MVP the last 2 years. And when I look at not what he's doing, but how he's doing it, he is more of an MVP this year. I don't care what the numbers say. If you watch the Brooklyn games, if you've watched Milwaukee consistently this year, Giannis Antetokounmpo is operating in the mid-post. I've always said he has to do that. He has to be a threat with a mid-range jumper, and he has to be able to make plays, have the poise to make plays out of that mid-range. He is doing that. He's also stepping up when your best player has to say, oh, their guy's knocking down shots, watch me. He answered with KD in these last couple of games. KD came down, hit a big dagger 3. Giannis came back down the other way and took a 3, and in this case, made it to respond to it. All I want is him taking those shots, taking the mid-range when it's there, taking the 3 when it's there, because that then allows the rest of your team to have confidence that our guy's not afraid of the big moment. That's what Giannis has demonstrated this year more than ever before, And I think it's why it makes them so dangerous. So I'm with you. I don't want to pick a favorite, but I believe the Bucks have as good a chance as anybody does this year, and a better chance than they had in the last 3 years.
By the way, a minute left. Were you surprised LeBron not only got hurt, but acknowledged, I'll never be 100% again? That was kind of an interesting admission, was it not?
It is what separates him from every other superstar player that we've ever seen. And it's why he's so polarizing. I mean, can you imagine Kobe or Michael or just about anybody saying, yeah, you know what, I'm hurt and I'm never going to be the same again? It floors me. My only thought as to why that is because it takes all of the pressure off. The expectation that he's going to come back and he's going to save the day. He may very well still come back and save the day. But now if he doesn't, he can say, hey, look, I told you, not 100%. But for a guy who just a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, was putting out there on Instagram, the storm is brewing, like we're coming. And now, he was recovering from his injury at the time. And now suddenly it's like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to play with this. It is, look, LeBron takes us on his roller coaster, his emotional roller coaster. I feel like we as Americans, we're his therapy couch. And he just lets us know from minute to minute exactly where he is mentally. And we're just not used to hearing that or seeing that from the face of the franchise and the face of the league.
Ric Bucher, good seeing you, bud. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Same, Colin.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.